We're back.
We're back.
Another ancient mystery.
Okay.
And today we travel to South America, to the country of Peru, to talk about the Nazca lines.
Yeah. Amazing.
Why is this such a mystery? What makes these lines in the desert of Nazca such a mystery?
Well, part of it is the intrigue that you can really only make them out from the air. So it seems to be a message that it can only be read from the air. And I've never been to the site, but from some of the different documentaries that I have seen, reputable documentaries, verifiable, right? Um, when you're on the ground, you really can't make it out. They're just you're not able to see. Okay, so you're on the ground and you may be able to see some lines or whatever, but you really can't make out the scope of it, and you only can do that when you're up in the air. So they were really discovered when flying took off, airplanes and so forth. So there's an early accountment, I think, in the late 20s, and then in the 30s it really took off
Mm-hmm.
because people were flying, and the Peruvian government, the army or something, couldn't believe it, and so they did a lot of reconnaissance and stuff like that. And so it's a mystery because you're not talking about little drawings either. For example, one of my favorite geoglyphs is the spider. The spider is 154 feet long. Another one is they call the astronaut, el astronauta, and that guy seems to have a hand up, like if he's either waving goodbye or waving come on in, we welcome you, right? And we're looking at 104 feet. So it's tremendous. And I think the entire thing, they said it's encompasses 200 square miles. So it's no,
And it's in the middle of the desert.
it's in the middle of the desert.
Why did these people do this in the middle of the desert?
You got
And
me.
and it's pre-Inca,
Yes,
pre-Nazca, some of it.
I would say so.
Yeah, some of the research, it says that it was actually a group called it was a culture called the Pacama
Yeah.
culture. Oh no, Paracas, I'm sorry.
Paracas,
The
yeah,
Paracas
Paracas.
people
Yeah, Paracas people.
that came from a little bit further north, the
Right.
Paracas Peninsula, and they came down and they did these drawings here.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And when you realize that you know you start at one point and you're on the ground. So you have to have this picture in your mind and make sure that you don't go off of it just a little bit. But if you look at every picture, because they're straight lines and sometimes they curve, like when they're going to do the hummingbird, you have to come back to the site you started at in order to finish the drawing.
Hmm. And they're
So,
proportionate.
and you're proportionate. So you have to come back to the site that originated the drawing in order to close it off and finish it. I mean, it's how did they do that without some kind of aerial observation or something, Because it's
Yeah,
definitely a message to be read from airplanes, right? It's
from
unbelievable.
something flying up there.
Something flying,
Yeah.
you know? Eh,
That's, I think, the biggest mystery here is that why did they do that?
Oh,
Why did they do it? Because they're saying it's somewhere around 2,000 years old,
that's what they're saying.
right? And there was this one doctor, Maria Reich,
Yes.
that she was German. She dedicated 50 years of her life to this site, and you have the Nazca lines, and then you also have the Palpa lines. The Palpa, yeah, the Palpa line. So it's the Nazca lines and the Palpa lines. And the Palpa lines She was focused on the Nazca lines, which can only really be seen made out from aerial, but the Palpa lines can be seen from the ground because those are on hills.
Hmm.
But she focused on the Nazca lines, and she claimed that uh, they were astronomical signs.
The Palpa lines.
The Nazca lines. Dr. Maria Reich,
Okay.
the German, she was a physicist, archaeologist. She claimed that they were astronomical signs.
Look, there's a tremendous amount of mystery with the entire site. And let me throw this out you real quick. One of my favorites geoglyphs is the spider. Okay? Now, the spider, it has a tremendous amount of mystery because it's from the genus Resinuli. So what type of a spider is it? It only appears today in the Amazon. That doesn't bother me that much. What really bothers me is that if you look at the spider and you see its extended leg, it has a reproductive organ at the tip. Okay? It's very visible in the Nazca lines. However, this reproductive organ is only visible with the use of a microscope. Okay? Now the
Oh,
spider,
in real life.
yeah, the spider on the Nazca lines has a reproductive organ at the tip of one of its legs, very easily visible, but you can only identify it with the use of a microscope. Now you tell me how that was done, how they know that. It put it on the ground as a geoglyph when the microscope wasn't invented yet, right? Because this is supposed to be 2000 plus years old, right? They didn't have microscopes. And this is a spider that can only be found in the Amazon today. And you can see the reproductive organ on the leg that's extended, okay, very visibly from on the Nazca lines. How did they know that? How did they know if the microscope wasn't invented? Okay, so that's a tremendous mystery. And every time I bring this up with people, they never heard about it. Now, people know about it because if you Google it, you can find it.
Mm,
Google has it. So the information is out there. But not many people know about this. Every time I bring it up with someone, and I make it a point to talk to archaeologists, scientists, because this is my passion, right? I love these mysteries, right? And some of them are not totally aware of it, you know?
yeah,
But it's out there. The information is out there. You guys can Google it. You see that I'm not, you know,
that's interesting about the
drunk or
spider.
anything like that. So how did they know that? If the microscope was not invented, that's why the spider is one of my favorite. And the spider is 154 feet long, you know? But not only did they know architecture, engineering, and everything, but they also knew their biology.
Yeah,
Okay? They also knew their biology. Now, the fact that the spider only appears today in the Amazon doesn't bother me that much because it could have been a different um, uh, uh, species of it that had the same thing or whatever. It could have been found then, or the climate there might not have been as dry as it is today. It's one of the driest places on Earth.
yeah. It rains
Anyway,
like only, I think, 1 day a year, 1 hour a year, something like
yeah,
that.
something ridiculous.
What is the species of spider?
The species of the spider is called Ricinulei, Ricinulei, Ricinulei.
Okay.
Okay,
Huh. That's
and
interesting.
it's interesting because they didn't have the microscope, Mike.
Another thing is that the animals that are in the drawings are
Like the
not
monkey.
from they're not from the area.
Yeah, the monkey.
Yeah, there's no monkeys in that area. So there's no hummingbirds. That's another thing. A lot of the species, a lot of the animals, there's a orca. I don't know if you saw the orca.
Yeah,
It has a chisel, I think.
I think
Yeah, it's holding some sort of holding
it's
something in its hand. And I don't think there's any orcas in that area either. I
oh
mean, we're
no.
talking about the desert.
Yeah.
So
Well, today is a desert,
today is a desert. But
right?
why did they choose all these animals that are not, birds and different species that are not from the area? And the monkey, by the way, only has 9 fingers. So
Now,
that
what
was,
does that represent?
well, one thing that was interesting is that the German physicist, Dr. Maria Reich, she was a big reason as to why this place has been brought to the world, right?
Right, right.
And she, in an accident, lost a finger. So she took it as a sign that this is like her life mission, because when she saw that the monkey only had 9 fingers and she only had 9 fingers, I guess she decided, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to trying to solve this mystery.
That is tremendous. You know, what motivates someone to do something like this? Such a symbolic representation that affects their life personally. And
Yeah, she took it as a sign.
oh, and these people like Poznansky, right? They're not looking for fame and fortune and money. They genuinely dedicated their lives to the study of these mysteries. That's why, right or wrong, a lot of respect and credit must be given to them because they tried. They
Oh
were
yeah.
there. They sweated it out. They dug it up. They lived with the people. And, you know, that's a lot of credit to these folks.
And they're scientists.
They're scientists.
Now some
Right,
people that go out there are not scientists, and
right.
they also do a lot of discoveries, and they, like the Graham Hancocks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
And the other guy that is in Peru a lot, that you talked about him the other day, his name escapes me, but he's very famous. He
in
does
Peru,
the elongated skulls, you know, that older gentleman.
oh, yeah, the name slips my mind right now.
He'll come.
Yeah,
But he's
Brian Forster.
Brian Forster.
Yeah,
We recommend you guys to look these guys up.
Brian Forster.
He's also dedicated his life to this, and he's a lot in Peru. He's all over the place. He's in Egypt too. Um, but
Well, he did a lot for with the Pumapunku
Pumapunku also.
in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, he's all over the place. Peru as
But
well.
these are reputable sources, folks.
Yeah, you
They're,
have, there's a book, a very famous book, right, that you had shared in a previous podcast you read, called Chariots of the Gods.
oh God, I think I read that in high school. Yeah, by Eric Van Donigan.
And so he says that these were like airports, landing strips, and things like that, right?
Yeah,
Um, I didn't find much on that to point to that, but there was a lot of, it seemed that they were like ceremonial. People would walk these lines. That's another thing that they said, they, in some sort of ritual or ceremony. And then it ends up that they're discovering recently so many more drawings.
correct. That's very important.
Very recent.
Yeah, there's over 300 drawings, but they're discovering
They're
a lot
discovering
lately.
more now.
Yeah, and now, so we're talking about the animals. There's also plant uh,
Yes.
um,
And shapes.
geoglyphs. So there's one called the sun star. Did you come across that one?
No. A plant?
No, the sun star is a geometrical
Oh, shape.
shape, and it's up on a hill somewhere. It's called a cross glyph, and it's on top of a mountain. And there, it's actually geometrical shape that encompasses triangles and rectangles and circle, and it's a tremendous uh, undertaking and is very precise. And so
Hmm.
people have come up with the idea of this could be like a representation of a mandala. Okay. Now, a mandala, I'm not qualified to talk about that at all, but all I know is that it's from Hinduism and Buddhism. Okay. And they have a great deal of respect for these designs, and their geometrical designs with the center. They take a
Is
uh,
that the one that looks like a flower?
yeah, like the flower of life kind of thing is associated, I think, with it. I'm not qualified to talk about this, but Tibetan monks are excellent in doing these mandalas.
Hmm.
and the colors are brilliant and beautiful. There's a lot of this in India, and it's associated with Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's supposed to represent the inner and the outer coming together, the universe. um it's usually a preface for enlightening of the soul and the mind to continue to grow. It's um
And this shape looks like a mandala.
it sure does.
Wow.
It sure does. And these new geoglyphs are called estrellas, which is stars,
Estrellas. Yeah.
estrellas.
The ones
Okay.
that they're finding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
estrellas.
Yeah, because I think that they, from what I read, they have used AI now,
Right,
and they're using like these models, and they're able to somehow map the grounds and find things that weren't super visible to the naked eye or from aerial. Somehow the AI is helping to point them
right.
out to find them.
Yeah. And I don't know about this. So the Pan American Highway went over some of these
It
geoglyphs
went through it.
apparently, and they destroyed it because they needed the Pan American Highway. So I was reading an article, and then half of the article was deleted. Um, I couldn't find it no matter how much I searched for it. So I don't know what was deleted or what, but if you guys find it, it'd be great to hear in the comments. Um, and also, there's a lot of, so anytime you have something that's genuinely mysterious like this, you have, uh, a great influx of people that come to them,
Right.
right? And so you can see that people have driven their motorcycles, and you see motorcycle, you can distinguish for now the motorcycle uh, tires making like a pathway through some of the lines,
Mm,
because what makes the lines is the disturbance of these dark shape grayish red pebbles that are on the surface, and they move them around and expose the layer that's beneath it like a foot below or something.
mm.
And that
I
is
think 2 feet,
yeah,
feet
two
to two
feet,
feet.
and
Yeah.
it's extremely whitish yellow, which makes a tremendous contrast with the rest of the ground, and that's how the lines are done. Um, there was somebody that went out there and said, "Look, the lines are not any mysterious thing. Anybody can do them," and they tried to do one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were successful in making some kind of diagram with, I believe,
A
50,
rope
yeah,
and a
50
wood
people and
stake.
whatever. And
Yeah.
they said, look, I'm proving that this is not that difficult to do.
Right.
um, and then they ended up covering it back so that no one would be mistaken that to be an older kind of thing, because it was an experiment that they were doing, so they ended up covering it back.
It can be done. Uh, like you're saying, they proved that it can be done. But with the mystery behind it, I think is that how did they see what they were doing?
Oh,
Because they didn't do it for themselves. It seems like they were doing it for somebody else, especially with that the astronauta that seems to be waving, and
correct.
he's called an astronaut.
Right, they call it astronauta.
Yeah, so
Well, it
it
looks like one.
it kind of looks like one because it's got a bigger,
Yeah, and
wider
big eye.
head.
Yeah, and big eye.
Yeah, big eyes, but you know, it also kind of looks. It doesn't really look like a human. I
What can
mean,
I tell you?
yeah, because like when you look at the spiders and the monkeys, they have fingers. This astronaut, it's a like a, it doesn't have fingers,
Right.
right?
Well, it's a representation kind of like of a glove, right? That, but gloves have. I don't think that this gentleman that went out there and did what he did disproves the mystery of the Nazca lines, because first of all, he did it in one day. So his diagram was small. That's number one. He was able to accomplish it. And what he's saying is, if you're dedicated and you take a year, you can do a diagram 150 feet long. Maybe I buy it, but you need to have some recognition and collection of ideas and thoughts, and remember where you started, and these things are
Yeah, it
extremely
was very
proportionate.
precise.
Yeah, they're
They're very
precise.
precise. Yeah.
And even that doesn't answer my thing about the spider.
No, it doesn't, and it doesn't answer why they did these.
Exactly. And so, you know, there's a tremendous amount of mystery. Now, somebody else, because when you deal with this, and what do I know, right? But the theories abound. And there was another guy that was looking for underground aquifers,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently he did find some underground water sources. Okay, and they did find something called pukios. Okay, pukios.
Yeah,
It's
because they thought that these were somehow a water system or something.
right. It's spelled Puquios, and supposedly they date back to the 6th century. Um, and because they were going through a drought, they were able to somehow establish that this was a water management system. So you have underground rivers, and they follow what's called geological fault lines.
You're talking about the Pucuyos, and those are in a different area.
Right. And supposedly they ensure reliable supply of water,
Yeah,
and there's still like 30 of them
they're still
around. They must
used.
be maintained.
Yeah.
Um, it to me,
Oh, that's very advanced.
it is, no matter how you
Yeah,
cut it or
they're like
slice it.
spirals, and I think those also represent the god that they believe in that area, which is Mama something.
Pachia or
Yeah,
something.
Mama Pacha.
Yeah, something like that.
Um, those spirals, but yeah, that's interesting.
It's
That's
interesting.
advanced, a water system like that.
It's interesting because there's just a lot of mysteries. This needs to be further studied, you
Yeah.
know? It's got to be a well-funded money, well-funded study because look, somebody came up, the monkey? The monkey's tail is spiral,
Mm.
right? But it has a lot of spirals. So they were equating that to the Milky Way, okay?
Huh.
And
Yeah, that's why they're somehow saying it's astronomical.
yeah,
It's like a map.
yeah. And so somebody came up with a theory that the number of spirals equal whatever if equidistant from these stars that, and then they came up with the theory that the spiral of the monkey's tail could potentially reflect the Milky Way. So there's a lot of mystery to the geoglyphs. Okay.
Yeah.
It just needs to be further studied, and it can take a lifetime, Mike, because
I
it's
w-
200 square miles.
well,
And
one source said that there was over 50,000 geoglyphs.
can you imagine? And now the Estrellas are probably thrown in there because of
Right.
artificial
Right,
intelligence.
because even you're talking about shapes and lines, and now some of the new ones that were discovered. Well, by the way, the pelican, there's a pelican. It measures 475 feet by 108 feet. It's massive. Um, but one of the interesting ones is relatively new, is a flying human tethered to a monkey. That's what it looks like. A flying human tethered to a monkey. And these are some of the ones that the AI assisted models have helped to find.
That's crazy. I've never seen that one.
Yeah.
And I've been reading about this for a long.
Well, they're new ones. These are
Right, right,
new.
right.
Like and we'll link up the sources, but one of the Smithsonian magazine
Oh,
uh w- says that, this was just in September of 2024.
can you imagine?
Just a few months ago,
God,
they identified another 303 unknown geoglyphs.
three, 300?
An additional 303.
That's crazy.
And when you look at some of these, they're interesting looking beings, like
Was that a parrot?
this one.
Hmm.
Yeah, that looks like a llama.
Yeah, you guys have ammunition here to last you a lifetime.
Yeah.
We'll go
Now,
into.
they're also saying that there's human sacrifice. So there's like a man holding a head,
Oh, is that what that? Wow.
and apparently one of the things that was interesting is that a lot of the drawings match the pottery that we do have that was found from the Nazca people and I think the Paracas people. So,
But what came before? The chicken or the egg? That's
well, that's interesting.
I think the Nazca lines are super old, but how do you prove it? You can't.
They date them somewhere around 500 BC to somewhere around 500 AD. So that's making it close to 2000 years. And if it was 500, because the Paracas people were the ones that were there before, and
Yes.
um, so they know that the Paracas people did some of the Nazca lines, and then the Nazca people after either added to them or made additional ones. Um, but yeah, what came first?
Yeah, it, it just
Triangles, rectangles, spirals,
yeah.
wavy lines. How did they do all that stuff?
So somebody said without some aerial supervision of the drawing,
Mm-hmm.
they could not come out, um, let's say, as perfect as they are. Nothing's perfect, but they're pretty good. You
Very
know, they're
proportionate.
excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very proportionate
yeah. And so, how do you do it?
without being able to observe it.
Right, from the air. And so, they remained a secret until we started as human beings flying airplanes. And that's when we were able to. So all these years, there's people that have traveled through that area. They didn't know what it
So,
would.
okay, so what is your thought behind that? Because when you say that, we're talking about these ancient civilization that made something that was only visible by the air.
Hmm.
For us, it's an airplane. That's the way that we, you know, are able to see them.
Or
What did,
helicopter or something, yeah. Hmm.
how did they see them? Do you think that they saw, did they had the ability to see what they were drawing? Or do you think it was, like, how do you think, why do you think that they did something that can only be seen by air?
To show respect or worship for something or someone. Look, ask yourself this question. Are we alone in this universe? That's number one. Because there's hundreds of millions of stars, hundreds of millions and millions. Okay? We're going to say that we're the only ones in the universe. I don't know the answer to that.
So it would have
It's
been,
beyond my pay grade. I don't.
it would have been then something so that the gods could see, not necessarily for them to see themselves.
I would tend to think, you know.
Yeah, we don't know that they had the ability to see them.
No, but we don't. However, somebody pointed out that in order to be so symmetrically and dimensional, because you can draw a spider, and if you don't see how you're doing the picture, the legs can be one leg can be 20 feet longer than the other, but how do you know where to stop if you don't have aerial reconnaissance, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how far apart those legs are from each other, but I don't know that you can see each other. So the mysteries abound. And then the I believe the spiral of the monkey starts from the outside and it goes in. So they had to
The
have
tail.
an huh?
The tail.
The tail, excuse me. The tail of the monkey is spiral and it starts, I think, from the outside and goes in. So if that is indeed the case, then they had to know how far out to go in order for the tail to, or even if it's the other way around, inward, how is that diameter created? And then again, you have to come back to the point of the beginning in order to close off the picture. So I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it. We don't know why they did it. And I honestly don't know that they're just 2000 plus years old.
They could be older.
I, the problem is that it's easily disrupted because it's a shallow kind of a ditch, right? That
Yeah.
brings that up. So unfortunately, on one of the articles I read that a lot of them the lines are being destroyed, unfortunately. If it's not by encroaching cities or, because now they're finding lines all over the place, right, with artificial intelligence. But what's really interesting is the finding of the estrellas, because the estrellas now,
Estrellas.
the estrellas, they give it a
Stars.
different, now they're relating that to mandalas and Hinduism and Buddhism and that,
And the sky.
yeah. And so
Interesting.
it is interesting.
You know, in looking this up, because I wanted to know what is a geoglyph,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that came up were other geoglyphs in the world. Um, but a geoglyph is a large design or motive, generally longer than 4 meters, produced on the ground by durable elements of landscape. So
Right, by natural elements, yeah.
that's what a geoglyph is. There in Blythe, California,
Yeah.
there's something called the Blythe intaglios, and
Wow.
you have these what looks to be these giants that are also geoglyphs in the ground. I just thought that was a fun fact. That's in Blythe, California. um, they were great artists. These people. They were really good artists. The ones who did the this in Nazca,
Oh,
because they're really well done.
yeah, well, I think they had to have knowledge of
Mathematics,
mathematics because now with um, these geometric ones that are being found, you're finding right angles, triangles, squares.
trapezoids.
Yeah. So they
They
had
knew
to have great
geometry.
knowledge of math.
Yeah.
They had to. And, you know, call me naive. I, I am naive to some of this stuff because I realize I know so little, okay, that any information that comes in can disrupt whatever little I know, okay? If the information that's coming in seems to be reputable, um, call me naive, but they really look like mandalas. And now that ties it into this tremendous beliefs of Buddhism and Hinduism, which I have a great deal of respect for and I've been reading about, and it's just a tremendous um, wealth of knowledge there that you can spend a lifetime. I mean, so to me, it's still a mysterious thing,
Yeah.
and I don't know how they did it. I just don't know how they did.
Yeah. Yeah, and and who was it for?
Who was it for?
Who was it for? Because if they didn't have the ability to see it, didn't is it for was it for the gods? Their gods? Was it for um somebody
Who,
coming to visit?
who,
You know,
who knows?
did they have somehow the ability to see it?
Maybe.
By the way,
How?
one way that they're dating it is because of the wood stakes. That's what I understood. They carbon dated the wood stakes that were used apparently. Some that were found at the site. There's also clay pottery that was found at the site.
But,
There's
you know,
also a platforms. I don't know if you saw those platforms.
no.
There are these platforms that they look like little mounds at the end of some of these shapes.
Oh, okay.
When they started excavating them, they found that there was seashells that were put in a small wall. It was a small platform, maybe a foot or something, and then there were seashells on the outside. And when they kept excavating, they found it looked to be they found actually vegetables that were like an offering.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was some sort of ritual ground, and they actually found and these vegetables were preserved
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of the
like
heat.
corn and stuff. I've heard
Yeah.
about that. Not this time around, but yeah.
So it was also some sort of I don't know, guess
Offering to,
offering. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Offering there.
It's amazing. It's just an amazing thing. And it's not a small area. You're talking about 200 square miles. It's not a small area. And that may be up to what we have found today.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence may expand that further as they go out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it'd be fun to go and see it, you know? It's amazing.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely still mystery behind it and why they chose the specific animals and shapes, why they did those.
And they're huge
Yeah.
because don't think that 154 feet is a long figure.
Yeah.
And there's another one that's 300, like you said.
Some of the lines go kilometers.
That's right, for miles and miles on
Yeah.
end.
I
Yeah.
think even through a body of water.
Yeah. You tell me. It's like we say all the time, it brings up more questions than answers, right?
I think so.
All right.
I think so. Yeah. The one of the new ones that was discovered was an orca holding knives. An orca holding a knife. Can you imagine that?
Do you have that there?
Yeah, I do.
I did read
We'll
that.
link this up. These are some of the newer ones that are being discovered.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of it, there was another guy that was explaining a lot of symbolism behind it all, you know? How do we interpret that?
What does that mean? An orca holding a knife. Some people think that a lot of the animals had to do with water. Um, it was a way of like asking the gods for water.
Yeah, well, the spider is supposed to represent rain, I believe. So maybe they did that as a homage so that more rain will come to the area. No, who knows?
Yeah.
But they all represent something. Like the
There's a condor.
the hummingbird represents something else. I forget. Anyway,
Yeah. Um, by the way, the Nazca people, a drought ended up killing, taking them out. It was a drought because they didn't have any water. And that was somewhere around 500 CE. CE, that's after death, right? That's AD. 500 CE.
yeah.
Yeah, a drought took them out. So they did need water after all. Um, anything else you want to add to this
No, no,
mystery, the Nazca lines in
no.
Peru?
There's a lot of stuff. I wish I was more versed in the Mandela thing, but I am going to read about it because it threw me off when that was a newer thing that I found out this time around, you know? So
Yeah, it's very interesting
it's,
that they connected it to that.
oh my goodness. So
Cool.
somebody go out there and do some research.
Yeah, and what's cool is they're still discovering new ones. So maybe in some of those new discoveries of the geoglyphs, there'll be more clues.
Yeah, very possible.
Yeah.
All
All right.
right.
Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you.